If you want to know what happens when you hand over control of the most powerful military on the planet to someone who completely disregards the limits of power, then welcome to this week's Armed Services Committee hearing. The head of the Pentagon, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, was just put in the hot seat. And what unfolded wasn't just a verbal spar. It was a head-on collision between the U.S. Constitution and personal political loyalty, from refusing to answer whether the military should shoot protesters to defending his sheer incompetence by citing the Bible. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are going to dissect every single word of this hearing tape. Because trust me, the devil is always in the details. Let's start with the most fundamental principle of our republic. The military serves the nation, not a king. Right out of the gate, a congressman backed Hegseth into a corner with the most basic question imaginable. Listen to this exact exchange.
Do you think political allegiance to Trump is a requirement for serving our nation, either in uniform or a civilian in the department?
I'm incredibly proud, as are millions of Americans.
No. Not today, Hegseth. Yes or no?
Congressman, you know what a silly question that is.
It's silly enough to warrant a very straightforward answer. Yes or no?
We all support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
You know what? I'm not going to waste my time anymore. You're not worthy of my attention or my questions. You're an embarrassment to this country. You're unfit to lead. And there's been bipartisan members of Congress that have called for your resignation. You should just get the hell out and let somebody competently lead this department.
Mr. Chairman, do we not have any decorum in?
Freeze the frame right there. Notice how Hegseth uses the word silly. And from a legal and military protocol standpoint, the only acceptable answer to that question is no, but he physically couldn't bring himself to say it. Instead of answering, he attacks the person asking the question, calling him not worthy. And when he rightfully gets called an embarrassment, the very first reaction of the man commanding the U.S. military is to turn and complain to the chairman about decorum. You are the Secretary of Defense, holding the lives of millions of troops and the nuclear codes in your hands, and you're playing the wounded victim over a direct line of questioning. Hegseth's evasion here implicitly confirms that a political purge is underway inside the Pentagon, where personal loyalty is prized above warfighting capabilities. Things took an even darker turn when Representative Desjardins, a Republican, mind you, a political ally, started questioning the use of the military to suppress Americans domestically. Desjardins brought up a shocking event during the tenure of former Defense Secretary Mark Esper, a predecessor who refused orders to deploy the military against protesters. Listen closely to this back and forth.
And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs, you said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later, you've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people.
officers.
Throw them in the jail. 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing. Authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man, list it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are there
so
to...
say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great. Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay.
Except for the Bible. Do you realize how utterly terrifying that answer is? A lawmaker is asking a dead serious question about the risk of the military opening fire on unarmed civilians based on the sworn testimony and memoir of a former Secretary of Defense, instead of extinguishing that fear with an absolute guarantee. No, we will never shoot protesters. Hegseth smirks, writes off his predecessor's testimony as fiction, and throws out a cheap joke about the Bible to deflect. Under the Posse Comitatus Act, the federal military is explicitly banned from acting as a domestic police force. But Hegseth is bulldozing right over that barrier by refusing to explicitly deny the shoot them in the legs order. He is silently signaling to the troops the red line has been erased. While Desjardins attacked the legalities, Senator Tammy Duckworth went straight for Hegseth's ego and military competence. Duckworth isn't some armchair politician. She's a former combat helicopter pilot who lost both her legs after being shot down in battle, and she took absolutely no prisoners.
Your failures, Mr. Secretary, since you've taken office has been staggering. You sent classified operational information over Signal to chest thump in front of your wife, who, by the way, has no security clearance, risking service member lives in the process. You blew the $1 billion fight against the Houthis, whom, again, as my colleague says, has no Navy, and yet you lost all of those aircraft. You've created such a hostile command environment that no one wants to serve as your chief of staff or work with you in other senior DoD leadership roles. But what we should all be talking about, more than all of this, is that you have an unjustified, un-American misuse of the military in American cities, pulling resources and attention away from core missions to the detriment of the country, the war fighters, and yes, the war fighting that you claim to love. I don't know if this is because you are too inexperienced and incompetent to understand the real threats facing our country, or if it's because you are just an unqualified yes man who can't tell the president how to keep Americans safe. You are focusing on renaming basis for Confederate generals? You said just now to Senator King that to a man and to a woman, we would rather be associated with the old Confederate names. Well, I am one of those women. I served at Fort Rucker, Alabama, a base that was named for a traitor who took arms against the United States of America, led troops who killed Americans. It was renamed for Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient, who in his citation for the Medal of Honor includes that he saved 29 American lives, to include hovering backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker where a wounded American was laying and saved that person, including after being taken fire himself. I know a little something about what it takes to fly a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. That was heroic. I'd rather be associated with Mike Novosel than a failed Confederate traitor.
That was an absolute brutal knockout blow. Duckworth's argument rips the mask right off Hegseth's persona as a military leader. First, the massive security breach. Sending classified operational information over signal to chest thump in front of your wife. Make no mistake, if a junior enlisted soldier did this, they would immediately face a court-martial. But the secretary treats it like a personal flex. Second, choosing ideology over actual heroes. Hegseth wants to revert military bases back to the names of Confederate generals, literal traitors. Duckworth, leveraging her own blood and actual sacrifice on the battlefield, completely shatters that fake patriotism. She reminds the entire room, military heroes are the ones who save their comrades' lives, not the ones who take up arms against the United States itself. And to cap off this entire disaster, Duckworth neatly summarized exactly why Hegseth's security strategy is fundamentally weakening America. It's the egregious waste of resources.
You are diverting untold DoD resources and attention to fundamentally non-military mission of domestic policing. Across the country, we have qualified police officers who are trained for that mission. They know those streets better than the Marines you deploy to Los Angeles, who normally focus on the Indo-Pacific. And you recently approved 700 more troops in 3 other states to do admin and logistics works for ICE. You say all of this is valuable training, but I would much rather have our troops do tough, realistic training relevant to high-end combat. Instead of typing in spreadsheets for ICE, they should be conducting live fire maneuver exercises. Instead of patrolling American neighborhoods and standing in front of federal buildings, they should be rehearsing call for fire missions. We have local police who can stand in front of those federal buildings. And the list of distractions goes on. You are encouraging the DoD workforce to go work for DHS in increasing numbers. You're pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who literally say things like death to America. And you're putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans. Mr. Secretary, let the military get back to its real job. Stop forcing them to do DHSs. And if you want to be the DHS secretary, maybe you can apply for that job when you're fired from this one due to your incompetence.
That right there is the core issue. The U.S. military is the strongest in the world because they focus on warfighting. When you take the Marine Corps, force them to carry rifles, to patrol American neighborhoods, and make them sit around typing in spreadsheets for ICE, you are self-sabotaging. America has police to do police work. America has ICE to handle immigration. Deploying elite troops to do desk work isn't just an insult to their training. It creates a massive security vacuum against actual adversaries across the globe. It turns a multi-trillion-dollar war machine into a political circus designed solely for domestic clout. Duckworth's closing line was purely lethal. Maybe you can apply for that job when you're fired from this one due to your incompetence. What happened in this hearing room wasn't just technical bickering. It was a stress test of the Constitution. When a Secretary of Defense evades a commitment to not open fire on protesters, when he uses the military as the executive branch's private security force to manage domestic crises, and when he puts domestic political stunts above the safety of soldiers in combat theaters, the very foundation of an apolitical military is being dismantled. Democratic power doesn't just vanish overnight. It erodes through hearings exactly like this one, when people in ultimate authority are asked the most obvious, basic questions, refuse to answer, and cite the Bible instead of the Constitution. If you found this analysis helpful in exposing the legal and political blind spots that mainstream media often glosses over, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand what's really happening inside the Pentagon. Drop a comment down below. What did you think of Hegseth's except for the Bible answer? Was it sheer arrogance or a dangerous dog whistle? I read every single one of your comments. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell notification. Thank you guys for sticking with me through such a heavy topic. I'll see you all in the next video.